Hello and welcome to this video. This is game 6 of the World Chess Championship. I am FIDE Master Ingvar Jóhannesson from Iceland and I'm going to analyze this game for you. The white pieces, the world champion Magnus Carlsen from Norway, 2835. And with the black pieces, the challenger from the United States of America, Fabiano Caruana, rated 2832. Only 3 points behind Carlsen. This is the closest that the World Championship match has ever been in terms of rating. And yeah, game 6. I mentioned in the game 5 video that I thought things would start to happen now because Carlsen will have white in game 6, this one, and again in game 7 on Sunday. So I figured he would make a push in these games. So let's see what happened today in game 6. Magnus with the white pieces, and he opened with e4. His third game with white, and his third opening. He opened with d4 in the first game, the first white game. Then he went for the English opening, and now e4. e5 as expected by Caruana, knight to f3, and now knight to f6, the Petroff. This is hardly a surprise, number one, because it has been the main opening for Fabiano Caruana for a while now, and he has used it with great effect. It was one of the openings, the key openings in the candidates tournament that actually got Caruana to this point, to this World Championship match. And well, now we come into the infamous leak, the video leak of Caruana's preparation. He had a camp and they had a screenshot of his computer, and on there were some files with the Petroff. Some hints, but on the other hand, the Petroff is hardly a surprise, and this was the expected opening. We were expecting a battle in the Petroff. So knight takes e5, d6, and here of course the main move is knight back to f3. The very adventurous will play knight takes f7, which is actually a playable line called the Cochrane Gambit, which has been played by former FIDE world champion Veselin Topalov against Vladimir Kramnik. But here, a big surprise, Carlsen played knight to d3, a very rare move in top level chess. I think most of the games you will find in databases are by a guy called Karklins. I think the variation is named after him. He's, I believe, an American player that played back in the, I think, 80s. And what's the idea here? Well, knight takes e4. The knight doesn't stand particularly well on d3. It's in the way of the d pawn. But white has some ideas. He played queen e2, queen e7, and now knight to f4. Okay, he's heading for the d5 square. Here I thought black would play c6, which looks quite okay. I don't see really why that should be a problem, but he played knight c6, which is actually a novelty. But curiously, this was known because in the Chess24 broadcast, Alexander Grishuk mentioned that he had a talk with Kovalev, who was a grandmaster as well from Belarus. And they mentioned that knight c6, knight d4 basically more or less kills this line for white, just equalizes for black. So once again, Caruana displaying great preparation. But now, knight d5, and this looks bad. And I want to go back to the starting position and have a little history lesson, because this position reminds me of a very famous game, which started with e4 as well. And this was the most famous launch by Vishy Anand, the former world champion. This was played in 1988 in Biel, and Anand had the black pieces. This was a Petroff as well. The knight went back to f3. Knight takes e4. Knight c3 by Alonso Zapata. Bishop f5 by Anand, but unfortunately this is a very, very bad move because of queen to e2. And here actually Anand resigned. And the reason is, well, if you play d5 to protect the knight, which is attacked by 2 pieces, I will play d3. And I will win this guy. And the only way to really unpin and defend the knight is queen e7. But that meets with knight to d5. Attack on this guy. And d3 is going to be a problem yet again. Sort of similar to this knight d5 motif as to what we see in today's game. The funny story about this game is that, yeah, Anna just resigned after the 6th move, queen e2. Sometimes when you blunder like this quite horribly, you play a few moves just to, you know, just to save face. But Anand, he just resigned. And actually he finished the game so quickly that everybody thought he just drew the game. Anand, he made a quick draw. But yeah, I guess he saved face by just resigning and getting on with it. But okay, yeah, queen e2, queen e7. Let's get on back to our game. Knight to c6 and knight to d5. Similar to the Anand game, where Anand had to resign. But here, having played knight c6, black gets counterplayed just in time with knight to d4. So both queens here under attack. And white takes the queen, so black has to reply by taking white's queen. And now knight back to d5. Taking on c8 is nice. It's not very good. We will take on c1. And black will be just fine, yeah. We'll have to spend some time to win this guy. And yeah, this is not a good option actually. So Carlsen went back with a knight to d5. Of course, renewing a threat here. And this guy is under attack. So looks bad, but once again, black is just in time with counterplay, knight to d4. Note that if you take on c1, which wasn't played, I will take on c7, check, take a rook, and the knight on c1 is a big problem for black. It's not getting out, as you can see, and white will be up material after we kick this one away with, say, d3 at some point. So knight d4, counterattack, and here Carlsen protected the pawn with knight to a3. If you take on c7, black will play king d8 or king d7, attacking the knight, and then take on c2. And yeah, black has better development, and the problem for white is we're also threatening to take this guy, so we have to lose more time, and this is actually a better position for black. So none of that, and knight a3. So we have a very, very unusual kind of a 4-knight tango. And as you'll notice, since knight f4, we have only played knight moves. So knight f4, knight c6, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Knight a3 is the 9th knight move. And now, protecting this guy, Caruana played knight to e6. 10 knight moves in a row. Very unusual. We're taught not to move the same piece twice, but when you have mastered the rules, you can break them. And these guys have mastered the game of chess, so they know when they can break the rules. So okay, queens are off, and we have a symmetrical position. I mean, the pawn structure is more or less symmetrical. So many people figured, oh, this might be a short, boring draw. But hang on a minute. Carlsen played f3. I thought maybe the idea was to play knight b5 here. We have a double attack on c7, so we have to defend it with your king. And then we can kick this knight with d3 or f3. And yeah, it's a game, but the computer says it's nothing special for white. So Carlsen just got on with it here with f3. The knight retreated back to c5. d4, using the fact that this knight is overloaded defending this pawn, so the pawn on d4 can't be captured. Knight d7 and c3. So solid pawn structure in the center, but black will soon get his own pawn chain on the queen side after c6. Knight f4 and knight b6. We play knight b6 first to capture on e6 with a bishop if white takes. More development by white, and now d5. So we get these symmetrical pawns. and it doesn't look like much. Okay, now after d5, black is threatening a positional threat to take on a3, so the knight retreats, and bishop d6. And this should be very close to equal. But Carlsen seems happy to get such a position, and he trusts in his powers to outplay people in relatively simple positions in a way. But let's see how it does. He takes on e6. It seems to help black because knight takes e6, you just develop the bishop for black, but the other choices weren't so special. You could retreat the knight, you could be more aggressive with knight h5, but turns out you have to either retreat, you have to retreat because, knight g3, or if you go here, I go here, and now you have to retreat, and black is doing just fine here. So Carlsen took on e6, bishop takes, and now king f2. Caruana went for a space grab on the king side with h5, but Carlsen decided to stop this pawn from advancing further. He played h4. If you allow black to play h4, you're risking black fixing some weaknesses on the king side, so h4 looks like the move to play. And now Caruana is anticipating white's idea. He wants to play knight e3 and maybe stick something on f5, so knight to c8. After knight e3, knight d7, fortifying this f5 square. So white finds another idea. He plays g3. And now the idea is to play knight to g2, bishop to f4, and exchange the black squared bishops. And preferably let black take and get your knight from g2 to f4. A very nice square for the knight. If the black squared bishops are exchanged, it's hard to challenge this knight, and it stands quite well. But here, Caruana took, I think, a good decision. He didn't want to wait statically and just wait for Carlsen to improve his position. So he went for c5 here, trying to open up lines, trying to defend actively. Carlsen played bishop c2. We have castles from Caruana. Rook d1. Black could play c4 in some cases, but he does lose some dynamics, and white will probably immediately go for this idea that we mentioned earlier. So Caruana prefers to keep the tension, keep his options open. Knight g2 now finally, getting ready for this plan that we talked about. But now c takes d4. And now Fabiano has opened the c file, and he is first on this line, so he wants to take advantage of that. So very nice and active counterplay by Caruana. And he's even threatening in some cases to take over the initiative. Notice that both sides have isolated pawns, so we can't say that it's a weakness for black at the moment. Knight c6, trying to improve this knight. And Carlsen goes for his trade here, bishop to f4. But now more counterplay by Caruana, knight to a5. And here Carlsen decided to contest the c file, because, if he goes for his desired trade here, Caruana most likely would have flicked knight takes b3, and after ab, rook c2 check when he gets a very active rook. And white actually has to be very careful. So Carlsen did not want to allow that, so he played rook d to c1, bishop to b4, bishop d1. Carlsen doesn't want to black to take on b3 now. Knight c4, and here he is more or less forced to play b3 and knight a3. So I think we can say that while the position is close to equal, I think black is slightly virtuous here. He does have some ideas of playing bishop c3 in some lines. He has sort of nailed these pawns down and has, better and actually placed pieces on the queen side. Carlsen went for trades here, rook takes c8, rook c1, and now knight b5. Black is attacking this pawn here on d4. Carlsen first traded rooks, and then instead of defending d4, he counterattacked d5. Knight c3 now by Caruana, targeting this pawn. Bishop to c2. At the moment we can't capture, we can capture this, but we will lose this if we do that. So first, Caruana fixes the pawn on a2. This is now weakness that white has to worry about. Carlsen attacks a pawn, and now he starts to push his f-pawn. The idea is to, as you'll see, kind of fix this weakness and restrict black's bishop after bishop d7, f5, and now bishop c6 by Caruana. A very simple plan. He improved this bishop. Okay, it's a passive square, but a passive bishop is defending an important pawn. And now white has to worry about this pawn. It's being attacked by the knight. What to do? Carlsen goes for the counterattack, bishop to d1. And here, bishop to b2. Seems that Caruana is more interested in the pawn on d4 than the one on a2. Carlsen takes on h5. And now knight to e4 check, going for the pawn on d4. I was, however, a little bit curious about maybe taking on a2. And this is something I feel like I might have gone for, and I've been investigating this with the computer. At the moment, okay, the pawns are equal, so white has to defend this. Play becomes quite forced here. Bishop a7, knight c3. Now we're threatening knight b5, attacking the bishop and the pawn. So we're winning the pawn, so bishop e2, preventing bishop b5. But now knight e4. Check on the king, and the king has to keep an eye on this pawn, king c2. And now b5. We just want to push a5, a4, a3, a2, a1 queen. Bishop b6 and bishop c3. And somehow the computer thinks, oh, this is just slightly better for black. But if you play around with it and go into the lines, it tends to increase the advantage for black a little bit. And this looks like this could have been practical problems for white. I mean, this is just coming here, and you have to do something. The computer goes for some line like bishop f3, wants to take here and get counterplay with a pawn. But black will have the bishop here and a distant pass pawn, and I think some chances of converting. But okay, going back to the game, Caruana went for the pawn on d4, so equalizing the material. Bishop back to f4, protecting the knight. Bishop to c5. And now black has the only pass pawn in the position. And now we're coming towards a critical moment in the game. After bishop f3, Caruana played knight to d2. And here, Carlsen took a big decision. He is struggling a little bit. I mean, if the bishop moves and d4, black is threatening to take here and then play d4. A big discovered check. So Carlsen decided to take on d5. Now, why is this a big decision? Well, black will recapture on e3, winning a piece temporarily. White regains it, but after bishop takes f4, black is winning a piece. Of course, Carlsen was fully aware of this, but he thought that he would be able to draw this position. He took on b7. So black must now save his extra piece. Bishop to d6, and bishop takes a6. So Carlsen has 3 pawns for the piece, and opposite colored bishops, which in many cases can help your cause if you're trying to defend, or even if you try to attack with the extra pawns. Let's see what happened. It's clear that black is pressing for the win here. Knight e4. Attack on the pawn, which has to move. And now bishop a3. For the second time in the game, bishop a3 to fix this weakness. Bishop to c4. First, Caruana plays king to f8, because, well, otherwise you have to lose a tempo anyway after g5 because of the threat of g6. Pinning the pawn. g5. And now knight c3. Threatening to win the pawn on a2. So white is about to lose one of the pawns, so he will only have 2 pawns for the piece. An instructive moment here. You're losing a pawn, but you can choose which pawn you lose. And Carlsen played b4. Now why did he do that? Because after bishop takes b4, what's the difference between losing the a and the b pawn? the a pawn is further away, so it's more likely to cause black problems to try to deal with it. You know, resources that he has to use on the other wing. So, you know, keep the more distant pass pawn if you can, and of course the world champion is fully aware of this. So he keeps the a pawn. Now black tries to improve his pieces, get them back to good positions. a4, f6. He has to play the pawn to a black square and eventually hope to defend it with his bishop, and hope that you can get your king and your knight around to win the extra pawns. King g4, knight to e4, king h5, and bishop to e1. Bishop d3 attacking the knight, which goes back to d6. And here Carlsen, who, well, famously said that he does not believe in fortresses, apparently believed in a fortress in this position as he played pawn to a5. Now the idea is to deflect this bishop from attacking the pawn on h4, and this gives white time to take on f6, improve your king, and keep this pawn here. And Carlsen's idea of the fortress is that black can't really both contain the pawn and go on the offensive to try to win it, and he probably felt like this was a fortress that he could hold. And funnily, he was asked, yeah, in the press conference, you said you don't believe in fortresses, and he said, yeah, I knew this question was coming. But let's see what happened. Bishop to d8, king h7. Of course, black has to protect the pawn, so passive bishop at the moment. King h7, knight f7, bishop to c4, knight to e5, improving the knight. But at some stage you're going to need this knight to attack white's pawns if you're going to win. Bishop a5, h5, bishop d2, not getting the bishop around to the g5 square eventually. Knight to f3, bishop to d5, knight d4, some maneuvering going around here. Okay, attacking the pawn on f5, we defend it. Bishop to g5, bishop to c4, and here Caruana played knight to f3. Turns out, however, that this was the moment of truth. After 6 hours of play, this is where Caruana could have perhaps made history. He played knight to f3, but the move to make here was bishop to h4. Now, it's not easy to see why. This is a computer line, and yeah, after 6 hours of play, this is virtually impossible to see. But let's see an idea here of what's going on. Bishop to d5, knight to e2, bishop to f3, knight to g1. So white could play bishop to d5 or trap the knight with bishop to g4. Let's first look at an example of bishop to d5. Then bishop g5 comes. We try to keep the king and the bishop containing black's king. But now the knight comes in. h6 has to be played because knight f4 is coming in some lines. So white tries to play the pawn to h6. Knight f4, bishop to c4. And eventually white is going to get into a zugzwang here. King g6, knight g4, and we can maneuver the knight to e5 now. We're attacking the pawn here. The pawn pushes, but now knight to e5, and king g7 wins the pawn. So it looks like going back that playing bishop g4, trapping the knight, dominating it is a better idea. So from here we're dominating this knight. But now comes the idea here, and it's king to g8, and this sort of relegates white to playing the king back and forth, because otherwise you let the knight out. King h6, and now bishop to e1. And the idea here is sort of a triangulation. King g6, bishop c3, protecting the pawn. King h6, and now check on d2. King goes back, and bishop g5. So because of the triangulation, we go back to g5. White is sort of in a zugzwang, and now he has to push the pawn. If you move the bishop, I play knight h3, and you're actually getting checkmated. So h6 is the only move. But now I play king to h8. The king can't really move. If you go king here, I play king here, I win the pawn. If you go to f7, I play king here, and again I win the pawn with the king. So we have to push the pawn, but now we need white to have the move. So we have to triangulate again. Bishop to h4, king h6, bishop to f2, king to g6, bishop to d4, king h6, and now the bishop comes back to g5, and it is white to move. And he has to break the deadlock and move the bishop, and now the knight gets out. And it's game over. We win the pawn, and eventually we're going to win this pawn and the game. So yeah, this would have been fantastic if he had found this way to win the game. Instead, after knight f3, he has lost his chances. Actually, knight to e5, bishop to b3, knight to g4, bishop to c4. And yeah, some back and forth moves here. Once he attacks the pawn, the bishop goes to d3. When the knight goes back, we go to c4 to be ready to block the black king. And actually nothing much happened here. Bishop to c2, king e5, bishop d3. Keeping an eye on this one. So eventually you have to do something. But once you do, and Fabi went for knight e3 here, but now h6, and it's all too little too late. You have to take on h6, which Fabi did, offering a draw, which was of course accepted. So yeah, 6 games, the halfway mark, and once again it's tight. Every game so far has been a draw, but I think yeah, game 1 and game 6, this one so far, have been the standout games. If we go back to history, game 6 has been kind to Carlsen. He had managed to produce 2 wins in his previous 3 matches, but did not pull one out in this one, and was actually struggling to hold a draw. So also very surprising, the 5th game out of 6 where it's actually black who's better or even pressing, and that's very unusual. But yeah, halfway mark, and what's going to happen, impossible to say. We'll continue on Sunday, and Magnus will have the white pieces again, and what will he go for? Remains to be seen. Stick around for a solution to the last puzzle, and a new puzzle for you to figure out. And if you can figure it out, leave your answer in the comments. But for now, I am out after a long day, and I'll see you. Bye.